And it's time for Cowboy Up with Tex. Just a reminder for everybody out there, tomorrow is going to be kind of an interesting day because we're going to have yet another presidential contender visiting Chattanooga. Yep, it seems as though Marco Rubio is going to be coming into town for a rally followed by a fundraiser. He's going to be having a rally at 3:30 p.m. tomorrow afternoon at the Lindsay Street Hall at 901 Lindsay Street. I'm sure if you get on Lindsay Street and start driving up it, you'll figure out pretty quick where this is going to be. Of course, Marco Rubio has not been polling real high here lately. In fact, it's been kind of interesting that on the Republican side of the ticket, the three leaders right now are actually all non-politicians. You've got Trump, you've got Ben Carson, and then you've got Carly Fiorina, who was also a business executive, not like Trump, but kind of business person like Trump. And I think that shows partly how people, especially the Republicans, are just tired of the same-o when it comes to politicians. But you never know what these politicians are actually going to be like until you go see them in person. Here just a couple of weeks back, we had Ted Cruz come to town. And it was real interesting to be able to see the man in person, not edited by the mainstream media, television and whatnot, and be able to see him, feel his energy, listen to him in his own words and whatnot. I was pretty impressed by him. Back in the summertime, they had the NRA convention in Nashville, and I got to see Rick Santorum up there in that, and I was very impressed with Mr. Santorum. But I don't really know a whole lot about Mr. Rubio yet, but I plan on going there just to find out. I mean, it's a chance to make up your mind with nobody filtering it. And that's an important aspect. And I'm glad Chattanooga is getting to the point to where that the people feel like if they're on the road to the White House, that road now has to include Chattanooga. We've got Ben Carson. He's going to be coming here literally next month. No telling who else is going to be coming here. Although I got a pretty good idea that we won't see Hillary showing up. Unless maybe it's going through here, maybe coming down 75 as she's going hopefully to some federal prison somewhere. But anyway, so that's at 3:30 rather, tomorrow afternoon. A chance to see live and in person Marco Rubio. So that'll be pretty cool. Well, meanwhile, speaking of politicians, our nation's number one politician. And one thing to keep in mind about the word politician, you can always find out a lot when you look into the root of a lot of words. So you take the word politician, and it's got two halves. The first part, poly, goes back to the root word for many. Then you've got titian, or sounds like ticks. So when you look at politicians, you've got something that's like many little blood-sucking insects. I think that pretty well describes politicians. Anyway, but yeah, our nation's number one politician, President Obama, is actually up in Alaska. Too bad they don't keep him up there. And he's been up there talking about global warming, and he was astounded. Oh, he was shocked that a glacier in Alaska was melting during the summertime. And even if it goes all the way away, even if this glacier was to completely melt, it's not the first time. See, that's the interesting thing about weather. It's always changing. Sometimes it's hotter, sometimes it's colder. You know, they've got these little flags that they put on the glaciers, because ever since that glacier was first found by white men, it's been melting. Back in 1815, that's 2 years ago, for those of you that are involved with Common Core, 200 years ago. This thing's been melting the entire time. And they're shocked that it's still melting. I'm not exactly sure what might be causing it to melt other than weather. But I'm fairly sure that it did not start melting because somebody was driving a Hummer there in 1815. I don't think there was any factories in Alaska spewing stuff out of smokestacks in 1815 that would have made that glacier melt. In fact, it's kind of interesting that the National Oceanographic and Atmospheric Administration, known as NOAA, just released a report that said that July temperatures for this year were below normal overall for the third year in a row. Below normal for the third year in a row. Yes, we've had a few hot days in there. But this means that global warming, when you look at the true data, not the hype, not the people that are trying to get more government grants to prove something that actually can't be proven, but they need more government grant money to be able to figure that out. Meanwhile, of course, President Obama's running around up there boo-hooing about the weather, about global warming. I mean, do y'all remember at the graduation of West Point, President Obama went up there and told the graduates of West Point, our nation's military college, that their number one enemy was not Al-Qaeda, was not ISIS, was not Russia, was not China. Our nation's number one enemy was global warming. I'm trying to figure out how a soldier is going to combat global warming. You can't exactly just, shoot your rifle up into the air and shoot the clouds down. There, we took care of that one. So here he's running around trying to brainwash our soldiers, boo-hooing because ice is melting in the summertime. But now, Obama, waving his little pen and holding his little phone, because, he's got a pen and his got a phone and he'll use it. Obama has decided that he's going to change the name of Alaska's highest peak from Mount McKinley, something that's been known for over 100 years, to Mount Denali. I can kind of understand where they're coming from with the Mount Denali. The native Indians, the Inuit Indians that live there, call the peak Denali. But the fact is that the mountain was named by a congressional act. And that's important. And we'll get back to that in a minute. I just also found it interesting that when we've got so many problems, we've got police officers being killed left and right. We've got groups like Black Lives Matter, the New Black Panther Party. We've got people running around left and right calling for the murder of police officers, while Obama and his minions in the Justice Department are calling for police officers to be investigated left and right. When we've got all this going on, and his most important thing is to cry about melting glaciers and to rename a mountain that 99% of all Americans will never see in person. You know, a little side note that I thought was real funny is that, like I said, Denali is the Inuit phrase for the high one. And here we have the first president that has bragged about how much cocaine and marijuana he did when he was in school. So maybe there's is it actually because of the Inuits that he's trying to call it the high one, or is he just letting his ego get the best of him and he wants a mountain named for him? The high one. Yeah, I don't know. That would be a good point. But anyway, like I said, Mount McKinley was named because of congressional action. So can the president rename the mountain, just wave his little magic pen, and now it's Mount Denali? You know, the national park there is already named Denali, so you know, that alone could cause a little bit of confusion. But Alaska's Senator Lisa Murkowski has been trying for years to get the name of the mountain changed. And every time that she's tried to do it via congressional action. And every time it's been shot down, primarily by the contingent of politicians from Ohio, which is where President McKinley came from. You know, to them, it's an honorarium to one of their number one politicians that ever came out of Ohio. He was a well-regarded president, and they want it to stay that way. But when she was doing it, like I said, she didn't go running to whoever was president at the time, you know, and crying for it to be renamed. She tried to do it through the legal way, through Congress. But President Obama, who doesn't believe in Congress anyway, he's just, you know, going to try to do it on his own. But you know, then you got to go to, well, does Congress even have the constitutional power to rename a mountain? I mean, you know, Congress has 30 enumerated powers lined out in the Constitution. And nowhere in any of those does it say anything about giving Congress the authority to name a mountain, a river, to name anything, really. You know, it's not like number 29, congressional power to name anything. No, that's not in there. It's not in there. Well, what about, should that maybe be, you know, it says that anything not named in there should be reserved for the states. Well, see, that's where part of the problem comes up, though, because, well, then couldn't Ms. Murkowski rename it on her own since she represents Alaska? Couldn't Alaska name it whatever they want? Well, the problem is that the mountain, being on a federal park, is actually on federal land. So now you've got feds versus the states and whatnot. And they even have an organization, a government board that's called the Board on Geographic Names. So, you know, the thing of it is you start getting a lot of conflicting things going on here. People pointing left, people pointing right. But we still don't see where President Obama or his Interior Secretary, Sally Jewell, get the authority to rename anything, especially a mountain that was ratified by Congress over 100 years ago. Of course, I can kind of understand why he would want to rename it. I mean, after all, part of the history of President McKinley was that he stood for commerce. He stood for civilization, prestige abroad, prosperity at home. That was one of his platforms. And of course, that goes against everything that Obama stands for. So I can see him trying to wipe out anything there. But you know, the one thing that we have to keep in mind is that overall, if the president does succeed in changing the name, and nobody in Congress stands up to him, and the Supreme Court doesn't stand up to him, this is a bad precedent to where the president can just on his own rename something because he wants to. You know, maybe someday down the road, maybe we get like a Republican president, and he'll want to change the name of something like maybe the John Fitzgerald Kennedy International Airport. Maybe he wants to change it back to the name Idlewild, which was the name of JFK before they named it JFK. You know, I mean, if they just want to change the name of something and nobody can stop them, well, first off, that's a de facto dictatorship when they can do whatever they want, whenever they want. But what are we going to do? What recourse do we have if the president decides he doesn't like the name of Lookout Mountain? Maybe he wants to change the name of Lookout Mountain to Mount Joe Biden. Well, we need to have something to so people can remember who the vice president was, or maybe, just maybe he could change the name of Rocky Top. He might want to call it Bulldog Hill. What would we do then if they changed the name of Rocky Top to Bulldog Hill? Stuff to think about. Somebody needs to take that man's pen and phone away from him sooner rather than later. Something kind of interesting, a little aside. Of course, everybody's been hearing about all the wildfires out in California and Oregon and Washington State. You know, the whole West Coast, it seems like, is burning up. And you're hearing about how hundreds of homes have been destroyed. Well, there was this one man named John Bells who built his home back in 1999, and he built it in a special manner to withstand wildfires by making what was called a geodesic dome. And he made this geodesic dome out of concrete. Now, I don't know if it's the same one out there, but I know that in a town just south of the Dallas-Fort Worth area, a town called Italy, there's a monolithic domes company that they make geodesic domes out of concrete, a lightweight concrete. It's tornado-proof, it's hurricane-proof, and it's fireproof. So when every other house in Mr. Bell's neighborhood burned down, he sat in his living room and watched the blaze go by from the safety of his own couch in his own living room. In fact, they said the PVC coating on the outside of his home wasn't even scorched. More than 227 acres around his house burned. They've had firefighters get killed and all this stuff, but his house is safe. Makes you wonder, doesn't it? Because we have these houses all the time along the Mississippi and other rivers that they flood, and that people come get government grants, and then they build the same type of house in the same exact spot, and then they're surprised when 5 years later the river floods again and they're wiped out again. But that's okay. The government will bail them out again. We have homes up and down the coasts that get destroyed by hurricanes. They go out and they get a government grant or government funding, government loan, government money, and they rebuild the same type of house in the same exact spot. You know, we have zoning laws and building codes. Maybe what they need to start doing is saying that if you're going to build in a certain area, like along the coastline where you have hurricanes, or building in an area that's highly susceptible to periodic fires like some of these areas are in the West Coast, especially in California, if they're going to take, if they want to spend their own money, they can build whatever they want. But if they're going to take one dime of government money, which is, remember this, government money is your money that they took from you. Government money, maybe they ought to build something that will actually survive. Something like this concrete geodesic dome. If they're going to take money away from me, at least make it do something useful instead of just throwing it in the wind the way they do with so much of the money that they take from us. It's time for them to cowboy up, folks. That's right. We'll be back in a few minutes with more Cowboy Up with Tex.
Minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
Join me for a delicious barbecue dinner that's a fundraiser for Union Gospel Mission. We're serving up barbecue, either pork or chicken, slaw, baked beans, and dessert, all on Labor Day to support our ministry to homeless guys. We'll be at table on Monday, Labor Day, at New Haven Baptist Church at 1058 Graysville Road, right at the intersection of East Brainerd Road. We'll serve from 11 a.m. to 5 p.m. or until the barbecue runs out. This is John Rector, and the meal is free, but with joyous hearts, we will accept donations. All proceeds go straight to Union Gospel Mission to support our Christian programs for men who commit to stay and study with us. For more information, give me a call at 752-4998. The name is John, and we're looking forward to seeing you.
If you have the DTs, the shakes, because your phone is on the fritz, you have nomophobia. You need help. Your telecom doctor is in. Cell Surgeon at Northgate Mall. Cell Surgeon yanks open the ribcage of your phone, pries out the dead heart, and puts in the beating life that you lead on your cell phone. Broken screen, phone not charging, water damage, battery given out? Cell Surgeon at Northgate Mall next to Old Chicago Pizza. Check us out on Facebook. Open Sunday. Cell Surgeon. We bring your phone back to life. Mention Hot News Talk Radio and get 10% off. We've got a table here at Delia's in Saudi Daisy, ready to delight in a plate of authentic Mexican food. Delia's spreads a rich selection, loaded nachos, crazy chicken, homemade tamales, maybe the enchiladas with beef, chicken, pork, quesadillas. Every dish beautifully pictured on the menu to help us decide. Join us for lunch or dinner. We're at Delia's in Saudi Daisy on Dayton Pike near the Thrasher Light. Here's dinner. Delia's uses the freshest ingredients, cooked to perfection. Nachos, homemade. Delia's open every day except the Lord's Day. For lunch and dinner, treat yourself to Delia's genuine Mexican food. In Saudi, call 521-7145. That's 521-7145.
When my brother and I opened our first Jets Pizza, we believed if we made the best pizza, customers would find us. So we made fresh dough each day, used fresh toppings, and premium mozzarella cheese. 300-plus stores later, we still do.
Try Jet's famous 8-corner pizza with premium mozzarella cheese and one topping, now just $11.99 for a limited time only. Jet's Pizza, the best pizza in town. 3600 Hickson Pike.
Life is short. Eat better pizza.
Let's get Jets.
Compass Media Network's coverage of the NFL. Hi, this is Jerry Recco. Join Kevin Ray, Danny White, myself for all the action.
Hot News Talk 1240.
If it's the NFL, it's right here.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
Hot News Talk 1240.
News Talk Radio is back. That's right here at 1240 a.m. You've got all the hottest news station shows around. You've got Drive Time with Russell. You've got Nooganomics with David Tulis. You've got Nooga Strong with Eric Judd. You've got Sean Hannity. You've got Hot News Now. We've got it covered, coming and going. And right now you've got Cowboy up with Tex. And if you want us, you can call us at 800-8949. You can see us on the internet at hotnewstalkradio.com. You can get us at YouTube. You can get us on Twitter. We don't care as long as you listen one way or the other. And if you have anything interesting, have any questions, have a disagreement, like I said, just give us a call, 800-8949. We're always happy to take callers. You know, I just get so tired of how conservatives are constantly being put down by the left and by mainstream media. Now, we are a media station here. You know, we're a radio station, but we're not exactly what I would call mainstream. You know, everything here pretty much is locally slanted. But you start getting these liberals going, and they lie left and right. And one of the main problems that the conservatives, and especially the Republican conservatives, have had is not standing up to obvious lies. You know, your mama probably taught you, if you don't have something nice to say, don't say anything at all. But you have to defend your honor. You have to stand up for the truth. That's what the name of this show is even about. Cowboy Up. To cowboy up means to stand up for what's right. And if you're going to stand up for what's right, that means you have to talk about it. You can't let somebody lie about you and get away with it. It's that simple. Liberals come out and they spread all these different rumors. You know, that's one reason why Obama's still the president. Is back when Obama was running against Mitt Romney, you had Harry Reid go on national television and tell everybody that Mitt Romney was cheating on his taxes. And Mitt Romney did not reply to that strongly enough. And a lot of sway voters were swayed the wrong way because the lie was not forcefully put down. And when asked after the election was over and Harry Reid was asked about it, well, do you regret telling that lie? He said, Obama got reelected, didn't he? You know, you have where right now we're seeing all these different videos come out about Planned Parenthood. And we let the lie stand without vigorous enforcement that babies are just a bunch of cells. You have guys like Bruce Jenner walking around in dresses. And, oh, that's an acceptable lifestyle. No, it's called a mental problem. In fact, it's probably several different mental problems. Body, how do they say that? Dysmorphia. You know, where people are not comfortable in their own body, but it's a mental problem. And instead of treating them, we're supposed to just accept them the way they are. Then you have, you know, like the Second Amendment, where liberals want to say that the problem is not with the mentally ill who get a hold of guns. It's with the guns for ending up in the hands of the mentally ill. But somehow that includes the millions and millions and millions of normal people who also own guns. We don't stand up and say, if you're so against the mentally ill having guns, instead of getting rid of the guns, why don't you help the mentally ill? Well, we're supposed to accept them the way they are. You know, in Los Angeles, the mentally ill have full run of the streets. They can do anything. They can go anywhere. If they want to sleep in the middle of the sidewalk, you're not supposed to say anything. You're supposed to just step over them. They go up and want to sleep in the doorways of businesses, and the business owners are not supposed to do anything about that because, well, they have rights too. Maybe they need to have the right of medical treatment. You're supposed to have Obamacare to treat people. Why don't we treat the mentally ill instead of taking things away from those that are good, law-abiding, tax-paying citizens? Don't infringe on me because of something somebody else does that's wrong. Overall, conservatism is about compassion. But the thing about compassion is this. I think everybody out there has heard the term tough love. Sometimes you have to do something that you may not want to do, but in the long run, it's for the other person's benefit to help them. Right here in Chattanooga, we're fixing to be having a little benefit going on for the homeless. I hate that phrase, the homeless, because it is not applied to people that are truly homeless. To me, a homeless person is maybe a family that's been living paycheck to paycheck, and they either lose their home or maybe their home burns down, but they want a home. They just, for whatever reason, don't have one right this second. But if you give them a helping hand, a hand up, they will take that and they will use it to move upward and onward. We've got Habitat for Humanity. How does Habitat for Humanity work? The person that's going to be getting that home has to go in there and assist with the building, sweat equity. Other people donate time and money, but they help build that thing, and the person that's going to get that has to help build it too, to make them emotionally invested in that home. And then when the home is finished, they are no longer homeless. That was a homeless person who now has a home. But meanwhile, you have these people that live out underneath our bridges, that go begging on the street corners. Could they get a job? Yeah. Could they go get into some of these government programs to help them learn a skill, make something of themselves? Yeah. Could they maybe eventually get a home, even if they're just renting it? Could they maybe get a home? Yeah. But do they? No, they don't. A while back, last winter, they were having some real bad snow days, and one of the news stations went out and interviewed some of these people. And they're like, well, why aren't you going into, the mission over here, where it's nice and warm? You don't have to worry about freezing to death. Well, they have rules, and I don't like their rules. I'd rather be out here where it's cold. That's not a homeless person. That's a person that is homeless by choice. That is not a homeless person. And a person like that needs, for one thing, they usually need some sort of mental help. But we're not allowed to do that. We're not even supposed to mention that anymore. Political correctness has gotten so crazy that now we're not even allowed to say when somebody might need mental health care. We're supposed to accept them for the way they are. Well, they have rights too. Well, part of the problem is that we have rights that when that happens, our rights are being denied to us so that other people's rights get precedence over ours. And a mentally ill person needs help. It's that simple. They don't need our money. They don't need our charity. They need help. That's the part about tough love. But liberalism, they want to say they're compassionate when in reality, under that mask of compassion, they're just more about enablement and entitlement. And somehow that ends up on dependence on the government. Because if they have an entitlement, the only place that they can get that entitlement from ultimately is the government. Because either the government will give it to them or the government will make somebody else give it to them one way or the other. Until finally, everybody's dependent upon the federal government. You know, and you can see this in several different ways. At the end of the day, liberals only have one motive behind their policy stances: selfishness. They and their desires take precedence over ours and the rest of society. Their self-serving desire to have all of their needs provided for them without the work that we do to get where we're going, you know, and they get it through welfare, through their desire to bring as, you know, to get as much as they can off the backs of other people. That's pure selfishness. You know, let's look at a few different things here and contrast liberal versus conservative positions. Something like abortion, really, it's fairly easy to explain. You have a woman and her body. You have a baby that has its own body. Yes, for a short time period, that body is inside the woman's body, but that is still that baby's body. You can't tell me what to do with my body. We're not telling you what to do with your body. We're telling you what to do with the baby's body. It's that simple. You know, it's gotten to the point to where political correctness has convinced low information voters that a baby is nothing more than a mass of cells and it's part of the mother's body, thereby giving her complete control over the baby's well-being and future. But you know, when you start looking at these pictures of babies, you know, 15, 16-week-old babies, 20-week-old babies, they're babies. They look like babies, you know, walk like a duck, quack like a duck, might be a duck. Well, if it looks like a baby and acts like a baby, maybe it's a baby. And it doesn't matter how young that baby is. By the time you know you're pregnant, it's a baby. And there might be very, very seldom that there is a medical reason for an abortion. And there are some, but well over 95% of all abortions are basically retroactive birth control. Somebody was too impatient, too selfish, whatever, to make sure that proper birth control was used. And as a result, they became pregnant. Now the one that pays the price for that is not the one that was negligent. Rather, it's the innocent baby. And how is that fair to the innocent baby? You know, the liberals are all about being fair. How is that fair to the baby that you decide to be judge, jury, and executioner? You know, the modern perception of abortion was started by Margaret Sanger through Planned Parenthood. And they say that today, for every 1,000 white births, there are less than 140 abortions. However, for every 1,000 black births, there are nearly 500 abortions. And somehow this is not racist because the liberals promote it. Liberals are the ones literally killing hundreds of thousands of blacks every year. But they're not racist. The racist ones are supposed to be the conservatives who are trying to stand up for the very right to live of those black babies that are being killed. Conservatives held to the promise that life begins at conception. They fight to do everything they can to educate women on the facts of what is really growing inside them and what to do if they don't want to have a baby preventatively. But yet the conservatives are supposed to be the racist ones. Conservatives look at life as sacred, strive to show compassion, but they're not articulating it. They let the liberals run with the lie. You know, you look at like illegal immigration, the liberal position. Oh, open borders are the way to go. Deportation is inhumane and we should look down upon those that would stop it. You know, these undocumented citizens need to be shown mercy and allow them the same rights as people who are currently citizens or those who are currently going through the legal process to become a citizen. But what ends up happening? Literally, hundreds of thousands of low-skill U.S. workers find themselves unable to get jobs because they're given to the illegal immigrants. But they're supposed to be the compassionate ones. How is it compassionate to deny U.S. citizens a job? How is it compassionate to give scholarships meant for American children to illegal immigrants? They're literally taking food out of the mouths of Americans and giving it to these illegals. But they're supposed to be the compassionate ones. Whereas with the conservatives, it isn't about mass deportation. It is about making it harder for our southern border to be breached by any group of people, and easier for those who are stuck in a system that will not allow them to have citizenship, even though they have done everything the right way. The Democrats are the ones that make it so difficult for those that come here legally and go through all the proper steps to become citizens. Meanwhile, those same people who are making it difficult for those trying to do it the legal way make it so easy for the people to do it the illegal way. But we're the ones that are supposed to be racist and uncompassionate. You know, I thought of something a while ago. I was thinking, you know, it's kind of funny because in a way, to show how racist the liberals are, think about this. The racists are all about getting rid of as many blacks as they can through abortion and other programs. And instead, they're bringing Hispanics who are not black in to replace them. So they're getting rid of one underclass with a slightly lighter colored skin underclass, but they're not racist. And then we get down to guns, the Second Amendment. You know, the liberals, they want to make more laws. They want to grow government. They want to give elected officials power and ensure that criminals don't end up with guns. The problem is, though, is that they ensure that only criminals and only the government end up having guns. The problem is a lot of times it's the criminal government that has the guns. You got to remember, criminals don't care about the law. That's kind of the whole thing about being a criminal. They don't obey the law. You can make the toughest gun law in the world. criminals are not going to obey it because that's what they do. They had the old story about the scorpion on the back of the turtle. They wanted to cross the river. He says, "Oh, I won't sting you. I won't sting you. Just take me across the river." Finally, the turtle says, "Okay." So they get out in the middle of the river, and the scorpion stings the turtle. And as the turtle is sinking down into the water from being stung, he looks at the scorpion and says, "But now you're going to die too. Why did you do that?" And the scorpion goes, "I'm a scorpion. It's what I do." What's the thing about criminals? It's what they do. And they're going to keep the guns. And even if you take all the guns, they'll get knives, they'll get bats, they'll get pipes, they'll get bombs. They'll get whatever they have to break the law. The only way we can protect ourselves and our family is with the Second Amendment. The Second Amendment is our gun permit. It's that simple. The founders knew that. The founders didn't give us the Second Amendment for hunting or to protect us from Indians. They gave it to us to protect our lives from whoever might try to take that life, whether it was criminals or a criminal government. They know that the right to free speech is important, but they know that without the Second Amendment, we have no free speech. We have no freedom of religion. We have no freedom from a tyrannical government. Making it harder for law-abiding citizens to get guns makes it easier for criminals and for criminal governments to do what they want with us, and we can't do anything about it. And at the end of the day, they try to mask it however they can. Well, we need to take guns away from people so that the crazy people don't get guns, so the mentally ill people don't get guns, so the criminals don't get guns. Meanwhile, they're the only ones that end up with the guns, and you and I are left swaying in the wind. And how's that a government of the people, by the people, and for the people? And have you ever noticed that every liberal that talks about this, that wants to take your guns away, every single one of those liberals has armed guards, armed bodyguards protecting them? It's time to cowboy up, folks. We'll see you tomorrow.